Club news, transfer news, match previews, legend interviews, Spurs winning, press conferences, covering everything Tottenham and England.
Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. We are here to talk about all things Tottenham Hotspur. I'm joined by a very special guest, Paul Beattie, the Hotspur Hippie, all the way from Sydney, Australia. Paul, how are you?
All right, man. Yeah, things are going well. I just thought I'd chuck a quick gimmick in there. I know you're struggling for views, man, but yeah, no, things are going well, dude. How are you?
I'm very well, Paul. I'll be glad when Spurs are back. Of course, we're back this coming Sunday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Arsenal. Really looking forward to that one. But let's get into this podcast because, you run a successful YouTube channel. How long have you been running that for? How did you get started? Why did you decide to start your own YouTube channel on Spurs?
Oh, well, I don't mind telling a story. So, I'd been around the traps for a couple of seasons, being on channels like Irish Hotspur and, mainly Irish Hotspur, doing pre-match build-ups. And so I kind of was a bit known. But then it was last June, actually. I'm an Uber driver, and last June, I lost my license for three months, just, point here, point there. And I thought, well, I ain't getting another job in 3 months. And if I don't do anything, I have like severe depression. So I thought, as long as I keep busy, I'll be all right. So I started the YouTube channel, and it's going all right, man. I'm having a right giggle doing it. I love it. It's good fun.
Paul, how are everyone feeling right now in Australia about Ange Postecoglou taking over at Spurs?
Oh yeah, look, it's good over here. I mean, if you're a football fan over here, people are loving it. But football still over here, it's looked down on quite a lot. But no, Ange is great, and there's a big Greek community here. I've got some Greek friends myself, and they're enjoying the ride as well.
Would you class yourself as a happy clapper?
Oh yes, man! Praise be. The quad is on. The quad is on. No doubt, man. That's what football's about, Since 1976, I've been saying we're going to win the league. Well, I didn't say it in 77, but I've been saying we're going to win the league every year. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. It's like, oh yeah, okay, well, we'll do it next year then. Don't matter.
Paul, how are you feeling right now as a Spurs fan? Because, of course, Ange Postecoglou has been here for 14 months or so, full season last year, 3 games in, 1 win, 1 draw, 1 defeat. What have you made of the season so far, and how are you feeling ahead of the rest of the season?
Yeah, look, as far as the results go, disappointing, obviously. I mean, a win, loss, and a draw isn't catastrophic, but I think the performances we've put in have been really quite good, actually. And that fills me with a lot of hope, because I can see we're getting better and better and better. And I think what we saw in, especially in the last game against Newcastle, is, well, that's why we signed Dominic Solanke, wasn't it? Because we don't have that guy, and I thought he really looked good in the first game of the season. So I'm pretty upbeat. I think the tactics showed that Ange's tactics showed that they can really work against Newcastle. We were all over them in their half of the pitch, but couldn't stick it in the net, unfortunately. But I think hopefully as time goes on, things will, we'll start hitting the back of the net more.
You're quite confident then that we'll be hitting that form in the final third, because even Ange himself has been quite critical of that last year.
Yeah, I think so. I think Solanke, or maybe even Richarlison. Look, even if we had Richarlison in there, it would have been better than we had. But I like the look of Solanke. In that first game, okay, he didn't score, but he was, he was in those danger areas getting the ball, and he did have a couple of chances that, okay, he didn't score, but he didn't like scuff them over here and over there. They were on the money, but the keeper kept him out. So I think he's going to have a good year.
Paul, talking personally about yourself, of course, you used to be a season ticket holder at White Hart Lane in the 80s and 90s. What's it been like for you moving from England to Australia and now watching the games on the TV instead of being in the stadium? What's that like for you?
Well, it's quite hard when I first came here in '95 because you couldn't see anything. There's no Spurs, no nothing. So it's like cold turkey. And really, I'd follow the results, but I suppose it's since about 2010 that, it's been on, some sort of TV over here. And, I enjoy it, man. I like hearing the fans singing. That's what I'm really noticing. Since Ange came in, it went a little bit quiet at certain parts last year, but I mean, the fans that go to the game are in full voice at the moment. I just love hearing that. It doesn't matter if it's home or away. All you can hear is "Come on, you Spurs." So for me, I think, the fans that really count are the ones that go to the games. I'm just, some twat on YouTube, but if they're feeling good and there's a good feeling at the ground, then you're in a good place. So I enjoy it.
Some people might say that about me as well. Your favourite memories of supporting Spurs, because season ticket holder in the 80s, you've seen some trophies then.
No. I started going in 84, 85. So it's just after the UEFA Cup win. So I remember the 81, 82 and 84 wins on TV and everything like that. But what I really loved seeing, man, was when I started going, and Ozzy was back and Glenn Hoddle, Steve Perryman had a really good year. The 84, 85 season was a decent year. So it's just, and Ray Clements, man. I mean, some of these players we had, it was just such a Chris Hughton, bit of Paul Miller in there, Graham Roberts. They were good times. It was a rocking place, the Shelf. Dude, it was incredible. My first game, actually, because my dad was old Bill, and I said, can I go to Spurs? I'm like 12, 13, traipsing across London, coming back at 11 o'clock, how times have changed, And he says, all right, you can go to Spurs, but you go to the Paxton Road, you don't go to the Shelf. And, of course, we went to the Shelf. And it was brilliant. I loved it.
Were those literally the days when you could just rock up and just get a ticket on the door?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to cast shade or get anyone into trouble, but I think you could turn up and plead a bit of poverty and say you'd lost your ticket or something. Because at half time, they say, like, and today's official attendance is 15,000. And you'd be looking around thinking, I think a few snuck in here, It's yeah, no, you could just rock up. You could. And it was my first season ticket, man. It cost me, I was a child, so bear that in mind, but it's £35. Yeah. And even then, you'd make the calculation, okay, all right, so if I buy a season ticket, it's only worthwhile if I miss less than 2 home games. It's that cheap to go. Anyone could go and watch a game of football.
Paul, if you could, when you think back of Spurs over the years that you've watched them, any favourite games, any favourite moments for you?
Well, look, my specific memories of when I used to go are a bit sort of all, I sort of remember more the emotion, but I tell you what, Glenn Hoddle's last goal at White Hart Lane was something else, wasn't it? It was against Oxford United, and it was just a really nice going away present, and then he ran in front of the Shelf and we were so there was that one. I just used to like the way the whole thing was done. So, you'd have Willie Morgan, we're in a White Hart Lane, the world famous home of the Spurs. And then they play Glory, Glory, Tottenham Hotspur. Whereas, one thing I don't like about what they do now, as soon as the whistle goes, the DJ's on. And I'd really just like to hear the fans sing. Yeah. Because when Ange was at Celtic, because I've been following Ange's career for about, 25 years. And while we had Conte and Mourinho, Ange was up at Celtic, and I watched quite a lot of their games. And it's just the atmosphere, man. It was, I want that guy. And it was really great to hear fans singing the songs afterwards. So instead of being kind of told what to sing, because then you can show your appreciation to like individual players or the manager or whatever, instead of just na 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 all that crap,
I've been over to Australia twice in the matter of the last 18 months or so, and so many Australians have said to me that they have been following Ange Postecoglou's career wherever he's gone. Yeah. Is that normal? Like when you're following someone's career and you're not actually supporting the team that they're at.
I think it's because he's just made such an impact on football over here. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know. Maybe some people out there, you know, when we hired Ange, they'd be, you know, searching for Ange. And there's an interview, and it was the first time I saw him. It was an interview we did with a guy called Craig Foster when he was Australian youth coach, and it got a bit feisty. And I saw that live on TV. That was the first time I saw the guy. And you know, for what he did over here, he you know, and every sort of club he went to, he was always told, you can't play like that. That's no good. We ain't got the players to do that. And he just stuck to his guns every time. And so he turned Brisbane Roar into an exciting team. He won Australia an Asian Cup in 2015. And then, you know, we were going for qualification for the World Cup. And again, all the press and everyone, you can't play like that. And he got us into the World Cup and he said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going. And he went off to Japan. So, you know, started following Yokohama a bit, seeing what they were up to. Terrible first season, fantastic second season. So he's just he's just a guy that I think he's like from the neighbourhood, you know. There's no bullshit with him, and he gets the game. He just understands football.
I noticed you said we then, talking about Australia. So if England, Australia play, who do you support, Paul?
Depends what sport. If it's cricket, I'll go for England. Although it was hard last time with that Bazball rubbish. I couldn't stand that. No, if it's football, I'd go for Australia. And that's mainly because England have just broken my heart and always underachieve. Whereas at least Australia, when they get to things, okay, maybe they're not going to win it, but you'll be impressed by what they can do. So probably Australia's just and I think it's more just underdog. You know, that doesn't mean to say if England were playing Italy in the final of the World Cup, I wouldn't be going for England. Of course I would. But if it was just the two, I kind of like the Australian team more.
So would you shave off your beard if Spurs won a trophy sometime soon?
No. I'll tell you what, I'll shave off my beard if I get curry and pizza in it, because I've come close a couple of times. But no, what I will do is if we get to a final, it's going to be dyed blue and white. That's what's going to happen. But I'm not shaving it off.
Paul, you mentioned Glenn Hoddle. I'll tell you what, a couple of months ago, I was so lucky to spend 15 minutes with Glenn Hoddle and record a short interview with him, which I tell you, every time I looked up, I just sat there and thought, oh my God, I'm sitting next to Glenn Hoddle, talking to Glenn Hoddle. You interviewed Steve Perryman recently on your channel. So everyone do check that out on Paul's channel. What was that like for you?
It's great. I've been in contact with Steve for a little while now. But I mean, it's weird. Like when I was a kid, I had 3 posters on my wall. I had Ozzy Ardiles, Steve Perryman, and Debbie Harry from Blondie. So, like, he's my hero. He's my hero. And sometimes it's just really cool to chat to your heroes. And he's just such a normal, humble guy. And he's very, you know, because I've interviewed him twice, and the first time. I was getting ready and I was having technical issues, and I wasn't like putting myself under pressure, like, you know, being starstruck or anything like that. But I didn't want to let him down. You know, he's giving me his time. I didn't want to cock it up. And straight away, he didn't specifically just try and settle me. He was just very calming, you know. And it was like, okay, we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. I think he's a great guy, man. And I love hearing him talk about football. And what I'm happy about is, I mean, I don't know if people out there watch the Steve Perryman podcast, but when Mourinho, and I'm just putting words in his mouth here, this is just my opinion, I don't know what Steve actually thinks, but when Conte and Mourinho were managing Spurs, it sort of looked like Steve wasn't being really fired up by what he's seeing, whereas he's really quite animated now when he's talking about the football. You can see that he's enjoying it.
You're absolutely right, Paul. I get to talk to very luckily I get to talk to a number of legends on a regular basis, and I won't name them, but quite a few felt like that about Jose Mourinho, for instance. But with Ange now, everyone seems to be so upbeat with his style of football. Talking about the style of football, and I certainly don't want to go down the route of making this a negative podcast, but talking about the positivity with Ange Postecoglou coming in, and you mentioned it earlier about the stadium changing, the fans' attitude changing. It was like a party atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last year, particularly after those dramatic last-minute winners. But how would you describe that time under Jose Mourinho, Nuno Espirito Santo, Antonio Conte?
Oh, it was rough, eh? It was rough. It's just five at the back, counter-attacking football. It's just nothing like. It's not Tottenham. It's just not Tottenham. And I know we're all desperate. It's all. Where is it? Where's my button here?
Where's my trophy?
But I want to, I want to enjoy it. And
I'm one of them.
Hard. It was hard.
I'm one of them.
Yeah. That's it, man. But especially during the Conte season, that was when I was doing every match. I was doing a pre-match build-up on Irish Hotspur's channel, David Harris. Bloody hell, it was hard to get pumped up. It was, because you just know what's going to happen in the next game. It's just, it was dark times, man. Dark times as a Spurs fan.
What do you make of it though, Paul? Because those particular managers were making us a team very hard to beat. And now Ange Postecoglou, you in your own words have said he is the man. When you followed Ange Postecoglou for all of those years at various different clubs, how did you feel personally when you heard that news that he left Celtic and was joining Spurs? Were you surprised?
No, well, I was, but I don't want to big note myself here, Chris, but I'll big note myself. I'm pretty sure I was the first guy out there saying I want Ange at the club. And I think I did that 22nd of March. It was a couple of days before Conte left. But I didn't think in a million years they'd go for someone like Ange. I really didn't. But when it was announced, and it was funny, I was up with a couple of mates on the Central Coast for a weekend, and I was thinking, right, today's going to be the day, the official announcement. So I'll be listening to your bloody podcast at night, in the hotel room, and a mate of mine said, "You shut that thing up. It's like you're getting World War II blitz reports." It's like, yeah, I know, but I want to know the official announcement. So I was ecstatic, man. So excited. So, I still am.
What do you make of a lot of the fans? Because there has been a lot, particularly recently since that Newcastle game. A lot of people seem to be so downbeat. Ange has had a bit of a bashing from a number of Spurs fans about the style of play. We'll talk about the style of play in a second, but the negativity towards Ange Postecoglou, Paul, what do you make of it?
Well, I'm just wondering how much it is, because, I'm aware of things like, because one that got me fired up was someone who called in to talk sport. It wasn't your good self, of course, and it was just wah. So I'm thinking, we'll talk sport. If you've got 10 Spurs fans calling and one's a whinger and 9 are upbeat, they're going to pick the whinger because it makes good radio, I'm guessing. So I don't know how much it really is out there. Like I'm saying, when I hear the fans at the ground, there's none of that. I just think I don't know. I think there's a few people out there that never really wanted Ange, don't think he's any good. But I think it's a small but very loud minority, man. I think a lot of people are enjoying it, but you do get caught up in it. Some of the stuff that we'll talk about the football in a second, actually, but I don't know, man. But I'm just watching the football and I just want to smash Arsenal, and then I want to smash Coventry, and then I want to smash Qarabag, and that's what will change people's minds when they see it working, I guess. Maybe people, let's give some people a benefit of the doubt, maybe they're not seeing what I'm seeing, because I've seen this story before with Ange. And, when we get there, I hope everybody will be happy,
Can you talk me through what you've seen before? Because, from what I've seen online, the documentaries, the journalists that I've looked at and read reports, etc., Ange has been here many times before. He loves, in a way, being doubted, and he always proves those doubters wrong. Do you have the sense and do you feel confident that he's going to do that at Spurs and get enough time to do that?
Yeah, I think so. So generally what happens is, let's say, I remember this when he was in charge of Brisbane. and Australia, like I say, people would be saying you can't play like that. You can't play that. You've got to be more flexible. You've got to adapt. You know, the players you've got can't do that. So what Ange generally does is had a massive clear out. He's done that at every club he's been to. Even if you look at what we've been doing at Spurs, man, you know, in the last, since he joined, you know, all those players that I maybe question marks over, and I'm putting that mildly, all gone. Like, and they were there all through Mourinho, all through Conte, hanging around, stinking up the joint, and they've all gone. So it just takes time because I think I've got the feeling that, you know, Ange is more of a manager where he encourages the players to grow their football brains, you know, to take chances, because when you take chances during a game of football, that's when you improve. You know, you can do all the training and whatever you like, but it's at the pointy end. And of course, when you do that, you are going to cock it up a couple of times, and but it comes good. So what you'll often see is, you know, it'll be a slow start. He had a quicker start at Celtic, to be fair to him, but when it clicks, it clicks. And I think we're showing, like, the game against Newcastle. Okay, bad result. But compare that to last year at Newcastle, or the year before at Newcastle, where we totally, I don't know why, totally bottled it. At least we didn't bottle it this year. You know, there's a good sign there.
It's fair to say, though, isn't it, Paul, that we should be sitting here 3 wins out of 3, 9 points. You know, I've said this on various different podcasts in the last couple of weeks that, you know, Ange has set up this team to create so many chances, which they did, but they just did not finish in that final third. What more could Ange have done himself rather than actually being in the 6-yard box, tapping it home?
Well, that's the thing. It's like the tactics aren't working, but, you know, well, they are. It's just, you know, the 6-yard box, that's where we're having a problem. So, you know, I've heard, you know, our defences, we're letting in goals. When this works, it don't matter if we let in goals. Like, I'm no big clean sheet freak. I don't care about clean sheets. You know, if we score,
you sound like Ange and Vicario.
Yeah, well, you know, if we score 5 goals, they've got to score 6, haven't they? If you win every game of football in the season 5-4, okay, your goal difference is plus 38, but you're the Premier League champions. So, yeah, I don't care about it. I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
So does that high line not bother you whatsoever?
Not at all, because other teams have been doing it as well. Like, people keep pointing the finger at Ange, saying he's naive and all that. Well, what are they saying about Jurgen Klopp with his gegenpress and all that sort of stuff? It's not like we're the only team that plays a high line. I mean, maybe we take a couple of yards extra, but I think it works. You're squashing the opposition in their half. You're expending less energy in some ways because you're not running up and down all the time, you know, and you're wasting their energy because they're having to chase you around a bit. So I think it works. But like you say, Chris, you know, you got to score the goals, and that's the bit that Ange can't go out there and kick the ball, you know. So hopefully Solanke will come back and sort that out.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to Solanke coming back into this team, and hopefully he'll get his first Spurs goal against Arsenal. What have you made of Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven as centre-backs, the centre-back pairing?
That's crazy, man, isn't it? It's like the best I've seen since Robertson Miller, I think. You know, I think they're great, and they really complement each other well. You know, Van der Ven with his speed, and Romero. You know, Romero got so much unfair flack, really did, for, you know, and I think it was, you know, making it blunt, I think it was a bit of racial stereotyping, you know, hot-headed Latin temperament and all this crap. You know, and they were saying this about him when he had less yellow cards than Erik ten Hag, you know. So I think I like the kind of controlled presence from Romero. I like the speed of Van der Ven, but they're both good footballers, you know. They can both play the ball around, and not much gets past them. Not much gets past them at all.
Well, what do you make of a lot of people saying about Ange's tactics when they say, and I've heard this a lot, you can't do that in the English Premier League?
It's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. What, are you playing like you're not playing football? You know, what? You're playing basketball or something like that. Like, it's I find it really, really arrogant that, you know, when people say, oh, it's like, oh, the Premier League is like, it's like, okay, it's the most expensive league, but football's football. Like, I heard so many people say, oh, well, Ange has only won in Australia. He's only done it in Japan. He's only done it in Scotland. Well, I mean, Arsene Wenger and Alex Ferguson, hey, they didn't do too badly. So I think football's football. And I quite like it that, see, I've got the feeling that a lot of the clubs in the Premier League are kind of overcoached. They've kind of, they're trying to like crack the code on how to solve football. Probably coming from maybe the Jose Chelsea counter-attacking days. It's all kind of formulaic. And I think that's the way the Premier League has got into a bit of a rut. So when you get a guy like Ange that doesn't do that and he just says, no, just go and play football, I think football will win every time over coaching.
Well, I think it's fair to say that Ange Postecoglou has been backed in the 3 transfer windows so far. And I think it's very fair to say as well that he is extremely ruthless. And the backing, from the board for Ange in him saying, look, I don't want this player, this player, this player. And the rebuild has been absolutely huge. Don't get me wrong. I still think there is a lot more work to do if we want to challenge for the Premier League or, mainstream trophies. But he has been extremely ruthless in his time at Spurs so far, hasn't he?
And he's done that everywhere, man. Like, maybe the chat will correct me when I get this wrong because, that's what the chat always does. But I think it's Brisbane Roar and, was it Lucas Neal, Craig Moore, like club favourites. Don't fit into his plans. And you saw it with Eric Dyer. Eric, I'll fight for my place, Dyer. Well, no, you ain't, mate. You ain't, mate. That's it. You're not in. And it takes a while for players to realise that once you're... It's not once you're out, because you've always got a chance, I guess. But no, Ange does not play favourites at all. At all. You've got to be the right character and the right player for the way he wants to play football. And if you're not, and it doesn't even necessarily mean that you're not a good footballer. You're just not his kind of footballer.
So what about when a number of fans have said, particularly before the transfer window closed in the summer, where are the marquee signings? Because from what I've seen and from what I've learned about Ange Postecoglou, marquee signings, statement signings, superstar signings, they just don't happen, do they?
No, not really. No, he makes signings that turn into marquee signings or great players like, Kyogo Furuhashi for Celtic. Players like that. He doesn't need to. And also, I've been given where Spurs. I think the story would have been, when Ange joined Spurs, they probably said, right, this is the net spend, net transfer spend per whatever. What do you want to do? Or can you get a success? And he would have said, yes, but this is how you do it. If you just buy one marquee player, it's a huge risk. And I don't think we've bought bad. I think we've bought excellent players, actually. Our scouting seems to be a bit better. I'm not sure about Langer yet. I don't know, man. I don't like all the suits in football anyway, so that's my bias. But no, he doesn't rely on it.
Yeah, I'll come back to you on that one. You said about I said about Ange Postecoglou being ruthless. Were you surprised that Djed Spence was introduced back into the squad? Because fair play to him, he's taken his opportunity. He's back in the squad, back playing for Spurs. Are you surprised by that?
A little, because but that's only because maybe I just assumed that whatever was going on with Djed Spence it's insolvable. So something there must have changed. There were lots of, voices around Djed Spence and, people getting involved and maybe Jed's just cut all that out. There's no one irredeemable. If you put your head down and get on with it, then okay, you get another go. Like Ange said, it's like players, they don't have a clean slate, but the door's there if they want to take into it. But no, it's exciting, man. It's interesting he's not in the Europa League squad, but I suppose, we need all the English players and all that sort of stuff, and it's a balancing act with all that. So we've got our 4 goalkeepers, but well.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a shame. But of course, he can be reintroduced in January when the squad is announced again. Has Ange Postecoglou surprised you in any way, Paul, from what you've seen, in the past to what you've seen at Spurs? Has he surprised you in any way, or is this the way that you fully expected things to go under his management so far?
No, I don't think I'm surprised, because Ange is just Ange. Like what the way he presents himself or talks in press conferences, that's what he's always done. He's a very consistent person, and to the extent where when we were playing Manchester City last year, and Ange could not understand what the hell was going on with some Spurs fans, all this City till July rubbish, which I hated as well. And he stuck to his guns on it, didn't he? He didn't sort of. And then afterwards, he said he misread the situation, but I was fully behind him, saying, you want to win every game of football, surely, don't you? Isn't that the idea? And I saw I saw people saying, oh, we'll sit down and have a chat and explain the rivalry with Arsenal. It's like, dude, he's managed Old Firm derbies, and over in Australia when he was playing in the National Soccer League, football teams were largely based around like ethnicity, country of origin. So it's all about rivalry when you get like the Greek team playing Macedonia or Croatia, Serbia. I mean, Tottenham Arsenal, to me at its heart, is a sporting rivalry. It's not based on, it's not sectarian. It's not based on anything really. You've got families where, you can have siblings that are Arsenal and Spurs. It's a sporting rivalry. So I think he fully understands it, and I just like the way he sticks to his guns no matter what. You ain't changing him. So, no, I'm not surprised, man, because he don't change. That's him.
Well, what have you made of a lot of people saying that Ange Postecoglou will be under pressure as the Spurs boss if he loses the North London derby and a couple of results in the very near future don't go his way? And I also want to get your opinion on the sacking of Pochettino. And I think these are linked, because I believe that Ange Postecoglou needs time, patience, the tools. I don't think that it should matter at all what the results are in the next couple of months, because surely if you want to build something with a manager, you need to give them the time and the patience. And I think the fans need to do that as well. Now, going back to November 2019 of Pochettino getting the sack, do you think that he should have had more than enough credit in the bank, having taken us to a Champions League final, not spending a penny in 518 days? And also get your take on the sacking of Jose Mourinho 6 days before a cup final.
Oh, look at the sackings first. So the thing about Pochettino, when people talk about, backing the manager, and they usually mean with transfers. But with Pochettino, we built the stadium. Okay, there's no money for transfers. And I think in that situation, backing the manager means sticking with him. It's like, okay, we're giving you no players, but it's kind of you do as best as you can until the wheels start turning and the money starts coming and we can start buying players. And the club clearly didn't do that. It wasn't the fact that we went to those 3 transfer windows without buying players. I mean, I didn't like it, but okay, that's that. But you don't do that and then put all of that shit on the manager, because it wasn't his fault. So it was a shame. Mourinho, sacking before. I wasn't a fan of his style of play or anything like that, but that was ridiculous. Just before a cup final, because he wanted to win it. He wanted to win a final. So give him that. We weren't getting in top 4 and all that crap. I'm not a big top 4 freak anyway. So that was shocking. And then, Ange under pressure. So, hey, look, any manager's under pressure when they have a string of bad results. But I'm with you, man. I'm not really fussed, because I can see what's happening on the pitch, and I can see we're getting better and better and better. And, you're always going to have bumps in the road when that happens. So, but I can see if we lose against Arsenal, we get knocked out of the League Cup, I think it's just going to be Spurs-mageddon, Spurs-pocalypse everywhere. And, I don't know about you, Chris, but when I was a kid, no one gave a shit about the League Cup. I mean, it was all right, but it was like, whereas now it's like, oh, no, we've got to be in, because it's the easy one, isn't it? So, I want a Carabao Cup. I mean, even the name of it's rubbish, isn't it? The Carabao Cup. So
well, it hasn't been easy since 2008, has it?
No, that's true. And I'm not saying like I'm not trying to denigrate the winning. It's just me personally. The League Cup doesn't fire my passion as much as anything else. So, you know, an FA Cup or Europa League would be great. But, you know, let's just see. I mean, what has happened a lot in the past is that, you know, it's when the fans at the ground turn, you know, and when the fans at the ground turn, they seem to single out the ownership more than the manager, and that's when the ownership pulls the plug on the manager, and then we just start from square one again. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, man. I'm hoping people are patient because, Jesus, man, you know, considering how crap we were, and I know we got fourth, but I don't, you know, we were not good, and how far we're coming, and how much opportunity we've got. And the other thing is, well, if not Ange, who do you want? Who's around? What, Graham Potter? Is that what you want? You know, it's that kind of thing. I think that Ange is the best guy for the job, and it takes managers ages to get going on these things. You know, Klopp, Arteta, Pep. It's not like they came in and it was and we're coming from a lower base, so you know, It's going to take time to get there.
I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Top four or a trophy?
I see. I reject your false dichotomy there, Chris. I'll have both. Why can't I have both? I'm not going to play by your rules. I want to win the Premier. I want to do the double. Sod it. I want to win the Premier League and I want to win the FA Cup.
I asked that question because I do think that some managers, you know, even going back to Pochettino, huge Pochettino fan, and whenever, I'll go back to 1 year when we were playing in the Europa League. He was more worried about the team that we were putting out on Thursday. He was more worried about the Sunday game, so he would rest players on the Thursday game, and then we'd struggle in the Sunday game anyway. So then you wouldn't have results in both of the games, which used to frustrate the hell out of me. And more recently, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, you know, Sheffield United away, to name one game. There has been so many cup games which have been so frustrating. I tell you what, Paul, I'll be completely honest with you. I love Ange Postecoglou, and I really, really do hope that it works for him at Spurs. But one frustration for me, and I do understand kind of why he did it, but it's still frustrated the hell out of me.
You're going about Fulham, aren't you?
The 10 changes. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because I spoke to so many Celtic fans, and they said, do you know what, Chris? You're going to love Ange Postecoglou because you always want to go strong in the cups. And I tell you honestly, Paul, whenever we go out of a cup competition, that's when I'm the most gutted. Don't talk to me for days when we go out of cup competitions because it really, really upsets me. League games, of course, upsets me, but the cup games, it means a lot. So when I see all of these changes being made, I'm like, oh, come on, you know, take it seriously. So I suppose my question for you is that this game coming up against Coventry away, and you've seen Ange Postecoglou operate and all these, you know, various teams that he's managed. How do you think he's now going to approach this game, particularly after it went so badly at Fulham last year?
Well, look, I mean, we lost on penalties and it was 1-1, but
we were out.
Yeah, all right. I know we're out. It's only the League Cup, man. Don't worry about it. But look, I'll defend. I'll just briefly defend that, and also some of Ange's selections during the year. He's playing the long game, like he's been saying. You don't just one cup. Who cares? And so that League Cup game, because we were playing in the earlier round because we were rubbish the previous year, that was his last chance to see those players in anger before the transfer window shut. And he's like, what's the manager supposed to do? Okay, I've got these players, but I can't play them because they're rubbish. And during the pre-season as well, a lot of people saying the B team were better than the A team. So he said, okay, here's you go. And I think, you know what? One really good thing that came out of that loss was that we got rid of Davinson Sanchez. He was gone. And that freed up a spot so we could get Dragoshin in the winter break. So without doing that and keeping Sanchez, then the transfer window comes along, and then you got to dick around selling Sanchez. The decks were already cleared. So no, Ange wants to sustain success, man. And you know, he was fresh in the job. What's he got to do? What's he supposed to do? Now, the approach for this game coming up against Coventry, I don't know. I don't know in what phase of the Ange plan we are. Have we got to the stage where we're going to go for it? Or have we got to the stage where we're not quite there yet and we do have to... I mean, we're going to have to rotate players. That's just the modern game. I think it's a load of arse. Because when I spoke to Steve Perryman, when he banged in those 2 goals against AC Milan, he said that... I think it's something ridiculous. I think he said that was their 4th game in 6 days. And it was the same team and they didn't look tired. Whereas now... everyone needs a bit of a rub down and a massage and all that sort of rubbish, So
sports science.
Yeah. There's going to be rotation. How much? I don't know. But of course, Ange sees the importance of trophies. And like Poch, that's something I didn't like about him was, trophies are just decorations or whatever. Ange knows that trophies are what it's all about. So I'm hopeful, but hey, we'll see what the team sheet is, hey?
Paul, talking about Ange Postecoglou's first season, of course, those first 10 games, sitting top of the Premier League, winning 8, drawing 2, everyone was absolutely loving it. You've mentioned about the atmosphere in the stadium. Now, since that Chelsea game, and including that Chelsea game, the last 31 Premier League games, 13 wins, 13 defeats, and 5 draws. Now, that would spell out Spurs being inconsistent. Are Spurs where you imagined at this stage under Ange Postecoglou, or is it all about the time, the patience, the tools, the continuous backing in transfer windows? Because the reason why I asked that is because a lot of fans, I believe, when Ange Postecoglou was appointed, a lot of people said, yeah, you need to give this guy the patience. But as time goes on, I think people become impatient very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And like those first 10 games, which were, it was fun, eh? It was fun. And I was full of it. We're going to win the league, hey. And the way I see it is, at least I've had that happy time instead of, oh no, it's all going to go wrong. And yeah, it was disappointing that, we lost the players. And then even when they came back, we didn't quite, we had flashes of it towards the end of the season. But we also had that run of 5 bloody hard fixtures in a row, We didn't quite get up with it, but I hold no truck in this whole last 31 games. Last season's done, man. There's no trophy for form. You can't draw an arbitrary line in the sand and say, okay, we'll take this line after the first 10 games when we were crap. You've got to include. Why not include the first 10 games? So that season's done. We're on to this season, and I think we're showing signs that okay, the results ain't there, but we're playing some bloody good football. And I agree with you, man. People are, patience started running out with some people at the Chelsea game. And I know we lost, and I've been criticised for cheering that performance. But I thought, what else are you going to do? Hang on, because if you'd have hung on, Chelsea probably still would have won. But there was periods of that game where we bloody rattled them with 9 men. And I thought that was promising. I thought that would have, the thing that was disappointing was I thought that would have maybe given the team confidence to think, look, even when our backs are against the wall, we can still do it. And it didn't quite get there again. But I'm seeing it getting there again now, which is good. But we need patience, of course we do.
Yeah, you're not the only one who cheered that performance in Ange Postecoglou, because what a weird situation that was. I was standing there behind the dugout, literally looking around the whole of the stadium thinking, wow, people are applauding a 4-1 defeat, but it was the way that we played, the manner in that we went for it, which was, I think a lot of people were wowed by that.
And to me, it's all about match fitness. So if you decide in certain games where, maybe you're 2-0 up and there's 10 minutes to go, or you're down to 9 men, or, these kinds of things, why would you bother changing your style of football? Because you want to get better at what you do, no matter what. So you don't play at the whistle. You're not looking, well, you play at the whistle, but you're not looking at the clock. So you do that no matter what. And when you do that, okay, you're going to get thumped when it goes wrong. But if you go back in your shell then it's like 20 minutes of sharpening up that you've lost. You've got to stick at it. And that's why, I hear, some people saying, oh, we need to see games out. It's like, no. We need to keep doing that style of football until the whistle goes, because that only by doing that you get better. And like if you're 2-0 up in a game, so the way you're playing has got you 2-0 up, why would you change? You go 3-0, 4-0. If you start changing and the other team get a goal back, it's very hard to get moving again. So you've got to keep thumping them.
Paul, something you might be able to help me with, and it would help with the knowledge on this channel for the viewers and the listeners. Has Ange Postecoglou ever continually used 3 players at the back? Because a lot of people have said about changing formation, about Dragushin coming in at the back, and a lot of people have also stated about Christian Romero perhaps playing in the number 6 role. Could you imagine anything like that happening under Ange?
Look, nothing's impossible, man. I'm not an expert on tactics, but he's played 3 at the back occasionally. But it's a long time ago. I think he might have done it with. Did he do it with Brisbane Roar, or is it Yokohama? But when Ange played 3 at the back, it was 3 at the back and not 5. That's been the Conte and Mourinho. The 3 at the back, it was 5 at the back. So none of that. I about the whole, putting Dragushin in. Why would you do that? Then you got more chance of one of your defenders being injured. I don't know, man. I think the defense is solid as it is. It works. So why would you start mucking around with it?
Paul, who's your favourite ever Spurs player and favourite ever Spurs manager?
Ozzy Ardiles, man. Ozzy Ardiles every day, man. It was just, I was so glad that when I started going to Spurs, he'd come back after loan, and it's just, he's just a good guy. Because it was one of my earliest Spurs memories was, it was the 78 World Cup when Argentina won, and I was only a little kid. In fact, my first football memory was Arsenal losing the FA Cup to Ipswich in 78, but then 78, the Argentina World Cup, and all I can remember is Mario Kempes, Ardiles, Kempes. And then it's like, we sign him. So I'd have to say my favourite manager in my memory is Keith Birkinshaw, because he created something wonderful at Tottenham, that guy did.
Yeah. What did you make of Ozzy as manager?
I think he gets short shrift, man. I think, and him and Steve showed that they're good managers when they went to Japan. I think Alan Sugar absolutely stitched them up. Alan Sugar did a lot to rip out the heart of the club. And, I think given the players that Ozzy had, it's like, well, what do you expect me to do? I've got to play 5 up. The only chance we've got is to play 5 up front. And I think if they had proper backing and more time, I think I've no doubt Steve and Ozzy would have been successful at Spurs. They couldn't. They know too much, man. They know too much.
I said the other day on a podcast, imagine having that front line of the 1994-1995 season with our current defence. What a team that would be.
Oh, dude, man, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? That's just what they had to do at the time. But the club wasn't in a good state at all. But yeah, those 5, or even the 5-man midfield we had in '87 with the defence we've got and Clive Allen up front, that would be all right as well, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, talk to me about how you feel about the transfer windows, because of course last summer the likes of James Maddison came in, Vicario came in, a number of Van der Ven, another. A really, really decent window. And as you mentioned, the January window, Dragushin came in, Timo Werner on a loan. Of course, this summer, a couple of youngsters, Bergvall, Archie Gray. What have you made of Ange being backed in these 3 windows so far?
He's saying he's backed. So what else do you need to know, man? But look, for me, this window...
And Solanke, I should have mentioned.
Yeah. Don't forget. Well, that was the main one. We needed a centre forward. That was it. We needed a centre forward, and I think of what was available out there, and sort of English as well. I think that was the most important one. Yeah, I would have liked to, Eze or something like that, but I think it was good enough. Good enough. Maybe a little bit short in midfield, but it could be the case that they saw so much from Bergvall and Archie Gray that they thought, well, rather than getting someone else in ahead of them, let's give these guys a go and see what they've got. So, you know, maybe we'll see how that pans out. Maybe, you know, in January or whatever. It's not going to all be fixed today or tomorrow, man. I think it's quite sensible when you've got two players like that to maybe hold off on another midfielder and see how they go. And okay, maybe that might hurt your results, but if it pays off, you're going to be so much better off, I think, not just now, but in the future, because they are young players. So I think he has been back, but I think Ange, you know, he's not like, you know, he wants the moon on a stick. Like the other managers, they want the marquee players. That's what they want. And you ain't getting them at Tottenham.
What's your expectation for this year, being realistic, Paul? Because we could all sit here and say, yeah, we want top four and we want trophies. What is this squad good enough for, in your opinion? Because, of course, Spurs want to be fighting on all fronts. From a fan's perspective, we want to be going far in the League Cup. We want to try and win the FA Cup. We want to go far in the Europa League. And, of course, a lot of fans will say, yeah, well, top four it's got to be top four because that's progression. What's realistic for you? What's your expectations in this second year?
Oh, you're asking me to be realistic, Chris. This is hard for me because, you know, we're in 4 trophies, man. So let's go for the quad.
I've just seen a comment, by the way, saying this is one of the most happy clapper episodes ever with me and you on it.
The quad is on. The quad is on. Man, I don't get it. You know, being a fan is, for me, being a better fan is about having fun, supporting the team, you know, no matter what. But look, let's be realistic. Look, I would absolutely love a Europa Cup, man. I would love, and I think we've got a shot at that one. You know, that would be our 3rd UEFA Cup, our 4th European trophy compared to Arsenal's 1. I mean, Steve Perryman on his own has won more European honours than Arsenal in all their history. You know, one man. You know, so I'd like that. As far as the league position goes, like I don't have the demarcation between top 4 and the rest. I like to just finish as high up as you possibly can, and see where that lands us. I think we will. I think we will be in the top 4. It depends on how some of the other. I mean, Man City might get relegated. Arsenal might go off the boil. Liverpool's got a new manager. Manchester United are in meltdown. So who's left to win the league? It's little old Tottenham, isn't it? I mean, you know, but, you know, a decent run in the Cups. But a Europa Cup, man, I'd love that. That'd be so cool, wouldn't it?
Well, you mentioned earlier about data. Now, of course, Spurs recently let David Pleat go as a scout. And he has come out and done various interviews in the last couple of days, saying it's all about data. They don't need me anymore. What do you make of the way that Johan Lang uses all of this data now to identify players? Because it's completely different to how it used to be.
Well, you know, my kind of standpoint, and this is, you know, I used to work in IT for a long time as well. So it's not like I don't know what I'm talking about when you're talking about like neural networks and AI and data analysis and all that. And I think a lot of it is a load of old cock. Look, it can help narrow down what you want, but look, the manager's the manager for me. The manager's the manager. And I guess it's okay if you use data to shortlist, but you've got to leave it up to the manager to see and get a feeling. Like there's no data for personality, how they fit into a dressing room. So I really don't like all this data stuff. And I think it's just, I think it's taking a lot out of football, all the statistics stuff. It's you know, we're human beings. It's a human game. It's emotion. You know, it's all about emotion. If you take the emotion out of football and being a football fan, why would you watch it? There's no point. Even if your emotion is anger that we ain't winning trophies, it's still an emotion. You care about it. So I don't like all the data stuff. And, I don't know what Pleat was like really as a scout. But he's old school. And I guess that's the way of the world, isn't it? That's the way of the world. All that's, you know, the world seems to think that football's changed just because there's more money in it. It's still the same game, man, you know? So I don't know. I don't like all the data stuff, but I guess, you know, I'm an old fart, man. What do I know?
I think I know what's coming here, but I'm going to ask you anyway,
Right,
Paul. Do you think that the Spurs fans can be too negative?
Some loud ones can, you know, and that's what I think. I think it's just, and it's the nature of, you know, the internet and YouTube and social media, you know.
Well, on that point, because of social media, the players are obviously on social media, and without doubt, a number of these players see comments, they see videos, some of them even watch channels on YouTube. So when they're seeing that, and the likes of Brennan Johnson has had to restrict comments on his social media channels, what do you? Because I'm a great believer. I think if I was a football player, I would have nothing to do with social media.
I was just going to say the same thing, man. Just switch it off. What you doing? You know, what's all that about? I find it crazy. You know, if you've got some sort of a presence or you're known, you know, like a footballer or a YouTuber like yourself, you're going to get flack. That's just the way it is. But I think the stuff that Brennan Johnson's getting is atrocious, man. But as a player, I wouldn't be looking at it. You've got to switch it off. And it's not like all footballers are on social media. There are many that are not, that just want to keep the blinkers on and focus on the football. So, like I said, I think, okay, social media, the pretend world that doesn't exist, okay, that's all feisty and but like I say, you know, I think the fans I've talked to, and when I hear the fans at the ground, it's a different ball game there, man. It's they seem to be well into it, well supporting it.
Well, you mentioned your favourite player was Ozzy Ardiles. Who's your favourite player in the current squad? Who do you really get a buzz out of watching?
You know what, man? It's unusual for me because I like a bit of flair and a bit of sizzle. I like Vicario, man. I think he's a really tasty goalkeeper. I like the way he shouts at players and gets them all sorted out. The way he's, you know, a ball comes into our half and it's like, oh, there's Vicario, you know, 50 yards out of his area and not in any danger. He's like, usually when I, you know, when goalkeepers try and play football, like old Pickford did against us, it's like, that's usually the time when you clench. It's like, no, don't start kicking the ball about and taking players on. For fuck's sake. Just don't. Please don't, man. But Vicario, safe as houses, man. So I'm excited by him, and some of his saves, reflexes are fantastic. I'm going to go with Vicario.
That's good. He's been very impressive. Enjoyed watching him. Of course, the North London derby is coming up in a couple of days' time on Sunday. How do you feel ahead of a North London derby, Paul? Do you feel worried about it?
Nah, bollocks. Let's go and stuff them. No, man. No. I'm not having that. You know, like, so I went to a sixth form college in Harrow in 1989 when Arsenal won the league, and it was all Gooners at that place, man. All Gooners. I was the only Spurs fan, and I just had to eat it for a year, but it was all right. And, you know, you just it's Arsenal fans, mate. It's Arsenal. Why does anyone care what they say? I hear this, they're giving us banter. Yeah, but they're Arsenal. You know, what do they know about football? So I've probably been, you know, in my childhood, I've been maybe immunised against Arsenal because I've been through the worst. So I always look, I can't wait for the challenge, man. I can't wait for it. And I think we've got a really good chance because they're, you know, Declan Rice, what a knobhead. Kicking the free kick. That was brilliant. So no North London derby for you. Odegaard, they're under strength. And you know what? I hope when we stuff them 4-0 that if there's negativity out there, they don't just say, oh, well, Arsenal were injured, weren't they? Because they didn't cut us any flack when we were injured last year, you know? You play the team that's out there, and if we stuff them, we stuff them.
So you feeling confident then?
Yeah, man, 4-0. 4-0.
4-0, wow.
Happy clapping, man. Happy clapping.
At his finest. Paul,
what is the point in just, you know, trying to be right and wrong? I don't care. You know, we might lose 2-0 and, you said we'd win 4-0. Well, what do I know? I'm an idiot. I want us to win 4-0. That's all I care about.
I'd love us to win 4-0. What's your favourite memories of the North London derby?
Well, like when I used to go, we didn't do too well in them, man. You know, so I think I was a bit of a curse in the North. Oh no, I tell you what, it was all right, man. Littlewoods Cup in 1987, we beat them 1-0 at Highbury. That was pretty good. I mean, we lost the tie eventually, but and of course, I mean, Paul Gascoigne's free kick, because that was. We weren't going to beat Arsenal in that. You know, Arsenal were on course for the double. They were the team, and we had, you know, Gascoigne and Lineker. The rest of the team was all right, but we weren't going to win that game. But we did. So that was a good one, man.
Well, what do you make of our record being so bad away at Arsenal and away at Chelsea? You know, some grounds that we just don't seem to do well at. Anfield is another one. The amount of times that I have driven to Anfield and back and feel so disappointed. What do you think it is about those particular grounds? Because a lot of people have said before it's about the mentality. Do you think that Ange Postecoglou will change that about, you know, Spurs going to these grounds that always seem to be so difficult?
Yeah, I think Ange is very good at creating like a siege mentality, us against them. And like, I mean, you talk about Anfield. I think there was one time we hadn't won at Anfield for 74 years or something.
Madness.
Now, at some stage, we were in different divisions, so it's a bit more bleak than that looks. But yeah, it's strange, isn't it? And I mean, I always say I don't, especially Chelsea. That rivalry doesn't really mean a lot to me, because you know, in my 13-year-old brain, Chelsea is still a bang average Division 2 outfit that just. You know, it took someone who stole the entire oil resources of the largest country on the planet to get them to win anything. And without that, they're shit house. So, but you're right, we do struggle at some places. Yeah, like I say, Ange loves a fight, man. He loves us against them, backs against the wall, and we'll see what we can dig out.
Have you noticed more Spurs fans in Australia since Ange has taken over?
A few more. Like, you know, as I say, football isn't the biggest sport here, but yeah, definitely. And I'm all for it. You know, things like maybe people are just Ange fans or tourist fans. I don't care, man. You know, if someone says, "Come on, you Spurs," there's no hierarchy in the Spurs fandom. I mean, apart from your good self. I haven't got a hat. I'll take it off and bow. But if someone says, "Come on, you Spurs," they're the same as all of us, aren't they? So. Come along for the ride, enjoy it.
Well, lastly, who do you think will win the Premier League this season, and the three teams to go down?
Well, it's going to be Tottenham Hotspur. I can't say anything else, Chris. I know you want me to be a pundit, but I can't. It's going to be Tottenham. Three teams to go down. Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? Everton are looking shonky, aren't they? Everton are looking.
They've got a new stadium to move into.
Well, it'll probably sink into the water in 10 years' time. I mean, there's some dodgy stuff going on at Everton, man. You know what? Hey, look, if I'm going to go for Tottenham winning the league, I'm going to advance my Chelsea down to Division 2 plans, because they're in civil war and that ain't going to be good for them, you know. But it's probably going to be, I don't know, it's probably going to be Southampton, maybe Nottingham Forest might struggle. Ipswich, I mean, there's a few down there, isn't there? But hey, they can sort it all out between themselves. I'm looking at the top.
We haven't taken any comments or questions during this stream so far, Paul. I've got one here. Beast of TH says, does Hippie watch Neighbours?
You know, there was a time when Neighbours was on in England, man, that more people watched Neighbours in England than live in the whole of Australia. But no one really cares about Neighbours or anything here. It's just, you know.
I visited Ramsey Street back in May when I was over. Yeah.
I'd say that was sad, but I visited Palm Beach, which is where they film Home and Away, you know, so.
There you are. I've done Neighbours, you've done Home and Away. What a pairing.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for coming on. And I could literally talk to you for hours. Tell everyone about your wonderful channel, what people can expect, and tell them to subscribe.
Hey, man, look, come over to the Hotspur Hippie, the only psychedelic soccer show. Hang on, let's get some effects. the only psychedelic soccer show on the internet where, you know, it's mainly just me. I do videos, I try and do daily little videos, and I stream, but because I'm very disorganized, I don't schedule things. So the only way to find out when I'm streaming is to subscribe and hit the bell icon. I don't blame you if you don't. I can't be arsed with that either. But, you know, just, I like to, you know, look at the, you know, the silly side of football. You know, I mean, obviously if we lose, I don't like it, but football's fun. There's loads of giggles. That's what I like to do, man. You know, keep it fun. You know, you've had a hard day at work or whatever. I don't want people switching me on and getting wound up. I want people to feel pretty good and comfortable. You know, I don't take any shit on my channel. It's a fun place for people.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, do head over there and hit that subscribe button. I love how you're very direct, Paul, but you're very positive in the same way, and I think that is a great combination, actually.
Well, dude, you know, whenever I'm thinking, I want to do a 10-minute video. There's nothing happening, so I always go to your 60-second Spurs updates. I mean, you get that on the money as well, man. It's always, I mean, sometimes you're a second over or 2 seconds over, but it's like, okay, there's some news there from Chris. All right, so I can just steal that and talk about that for 10 minutes. So what you get from Chris in 1 minute, it'll take me about 10 minutes to do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Paul. Pleasure having you here, and hopefully we can have you on the channel again very, very soon when things are a lot more positive, and hopefully we've beaten Arsenal in the North London derby on Sunday. Paul, thank you so much. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and until the next time, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs. That's it, man.